Hello there, how you doing? It's Phil Thatch, and I am here today with my Nikon D500, a fantastic pro-level DX or APS-c DSLR that Nikon made. And you know, it had its big brother, the D850, which may be the best DSLR ever made, and this was its little brother that was APS-c. And I bought this because I primarily shoot wildlife. That's kind of my #1 subject, is wildlife, small birds. And with a full frame sensor, I would probably be cropping anyway. And this has a 1.5 crop built in. It's a lot cheaper. And so this is what I shot with for years and years. And Nikon has just discontinued this fabulous camera. Well, as you can see by my t-shirt, I shoot Z cameras these days, not exclusively. I also shoot Canon. And the first Z series camera I ever bought was one of the first ones ever made. I bought the Nikon Z6, and it's a full frame camera, and I really fell in love with the electronic viewfinder. I thought that was just fantastic. I like to be able to review pictures on bright days like this instead of looking at the back of the screen and not having an accurate representation of what it actually looks like. And of course, this is a low resolution full frame camera, so it wasn't all that great for wildlife. And even when I did shoot wildlife with it, while it was fantastic for birds that were perched, it really wasn't too good for birds in flight. And I never did get the Z7. The Z7 kind of has D850 megapixels, 45.7, I believe. I never did buy that camera, and I'm kind of glad I didn't, because it would not have been a great birds in flight camera either. Same autofocus system as this. And then Nikon put out this camera, which is kind of what I was looking for. This is an APS-c. It's a DX censored camera. It's 20.9 megapixels, just like the D500. And of course, it had the same birds in flight autofocus shortcomings as my Z6, but it's still, if I go out shooting wildlife with a Nikon camera, I'm probably going to be using this Z50 or the ZFC, which is basically the exact same camera but in a different case. And of course, I would use the FTZ adapter and put my 200 to 500 f5.6 lens on there, which is fantastic. It gives you 750 millimeters full frame equivalent, and it's just a dynamite combination. Still though, what's missing is birds in flight. And that's kind of been missing. Birds in flight has kind of been missing from the Nikon autofocus system ever since the Z series of cameras came out. It's just something they weren't very good at. You'd point the camera at a bird in flight, and if it missed it on the initial pass of autofocus, it was gone. You're not getting that thing back. And so with that in mind, when I bought my Z6, I never was much of a landscape photographer. I always enjoyed landscape photography, and I did it a little bit. But when I had a brand new Z6 that kind of couldn't do the bird photography that I wanted to do, that's when I learned how to get better and better at landscape photography, because I really wanted to use this camera, and it didn't do birds in flight too good, so I did it with other types of photography. So that's my most thankful thing about the Z6. It forced me to learn a whole new genre of photography. Now Nikon has come out with the Z9. It's their flagship mirrorless camera. It has the same resolution as a D850 or a Z7, 45.7 megapixels, and it has great bird autofocus. I haven't used one myself, but all reports I'm reading and hearing tell me that it has animal eye detect autofocus that actually works, which is fantastic, and it is great at nailing birds in flight. So that's really exciting for people who shoot Nikon cameras, and I'm excited about it as well. But I don't want a 45.7 megapixel camera. Now, I'm not saying I'll never buy a Z9, because the thought has crossed my mind a number of times, but I probably won't. What I want is a camera like this, but with the autofocus system from the Z9. And really, you see how small the form factor is of this is the Z50 and this is the Z6. This is a little bit bigger camera. What I would like to see is an APS-c sensor. This one's 20.9 megapixels, but I'd really rather have it be 24. I think would be like perfect. In the same body, basically, as a Z6 or a Z7, and have the Z9 autofocus system. I don't, maybe it could be shutterless and do electronic shutter mode only like a Z9, but that doesn't, shutter, mechanical shutter, electronic shutter, either one of those is fine to me. If it's electronic only, it needs to be really, really good, because like I shoot also a Canon R6, and a lot of times I'll shoot in electronic shutter mode, but if I'm doing fast moving sports, I have to switch it to mechanical because there's rolling shutter and the soccer ball gets weirdly shaped. So if you can't overcome that, put a mechanical shutter in there. It doesn't have to be super fast. 10 or 12 frames a second mechanical and maybe 20 frames a second electronic would be perfectly awesome. Give it nice weather sealing. Just make it the Z6 body, which is perfect, and put in a 24 megapixel APS-c sensor in it, and give it the Nikon Z9 autofocus system, and it'll be great. That would be the perfect camera to replace what you just discontinued, Nikon, the awesome D500. And I don't know what it would be called. It seems like with Z series cameras that are full frame, they're Z and then one digit, and the higher the number, the more top of the line the camera is, with the Z9 being the top of the line. And we only have two APS-c Z series cameras. One's the ZFC, which is kind of a retro camera. It doesn't have any numbers. And the other is this Z50. So I would think that if they make a absolute top of the line pro level DX APS-c camera, it should be called the Z90 instead of Z9, Z90. And gosh, if they made that thing, I think it would sell really well, and I would definitely buy one. I bet you would too. Let's talk for just a minute about pixel density. With the Z9 or the D850 or the Z7, those are 45.7 megapixel cameras, and when you crop those down to DX mode, they end up being about 19.5 megapixels, where this and this, the Z50 and the D500, are both 20.9. So pixel density, these have a higher pixel density. And if the camera that I'm asking Nikon to make had 24, it would be an even higher pixel density still. So pixel density is kind of what you look for in bird photography, especially really small birds where you have to do a lot of cropping, even with an APS-c sensor camera, and a whole lot of cropping with a FX or full frame camera. Higher pixel density. And if you're going to crop most of the frame away, you don't need an FX camera. A DX camera is what you're looking for, in my opinion, for photography of small birds. So, okay, Nikon, make that camera. I made a video not too long ago about a Canon camera to replace the 7D Mark II, which is kind of Canon's D500. And that camera has been rumored and is really probably close to actually happening, I hope. This Nikon camera I'm talking about is not in the rumor mill. So this would probably be 2 or 3 years down the road. But I'm still going to be making pictures 2 or 3 years down the road, and I would really like to have that camera. Also, the Nikon has in their lens roadmap, they have a 200 to 600 lens, and it's been on the lens roadmap for years. I've been looking at that roadmap all the way back to 2018, and they still haven't announced it. There's been lenses that weren't even on the roadmap, added to the roadmap, announced and released, and the 200 to 600 is still sitting there kind of blacked out on the roadmap. So let's do a Z90 and that 200 to 600, and I think they'll have a absolutely awesome bird photography combo. Make that camera, Nikon. Thanks for watching. I hope you have a great day. And as always, I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye-bye.